heat is about to be on us in a big way after this nice little wedge of dry air goes away. Time to make sure everything on your heating and air system is up to snuff before we get into the thick of summer. You don't want it to break on you when we get in the 90s and it's just sweltering. And, in today's modern homes, older homes were built to cross ventilate. They were architecturally designed to open a few doors and let the breeze in. Modern homes are generally designed to be tight and to hold all that efficiency in. And that's a good thing as long as the system works. When that system goes out, nothing you can do. You can open all the windows you want. It just doesn't seem to help. So let Douglas come and stay ahead of it with you by cleaning your system and checking everything and getting on top of it. If it's not quite cooling like it should, it could be about to blow. Let them just handle it in a controlled setting. If you've got to get a new install, that's just the best way to do it. Where these guys are out there on a day by appointment, you're not in a rush. You can make plans. They knock it out, get you back online. That's always a smarter way to go. It's calldouglas.com. They've been taking care of me and all my heating and air needs for 17 years. Calldouglas.com. License number 2017181. CALL. Calldouglas.com. Trump's taking questions. It's looking hostile. Let's listen to a little bit more of this from the White House.
We don't need it. We have our own. We have much more than we need in terms of oil and energy generally. But European countries and other countries, they need it tremendous. Some of the European countries need it really big. And they should have said, we'd love to help. But
if you could choose, Mr. President, if you could choose, what would you ask them to do, sir? If you want.
Well, I would have asked them. I mean, there's not much. Look, we won. There's no Navy. There's no Air Force. We've wiped them out. We've wiped out their leadership and almost all of it. We've wiped out all their military leaders. They're down on the third. Now, maybe they're very good. I don't know. I can't tell you that. But certainly the first ones didn't do very good because they weren't. They were literally, after 3 days, almost the entire military was wiped out. They had to get new generals. And then after that, they had to get more new generals. And we knocked out their anti-aircraft, their Air Force, just about everything you can knock out. So, and then you read in the fake news that they're doing really well in the war. I mean, it's unbelievable. We knocked out everything there is to knock out, and you'd pick up the fake news and they'd say how well they've done. They're doing brilliantly. They have no Air Force. They had exactly, we knew that, 159 ships. Andy, out of 159 ships, all 159 lie beautifully at the bottom of the ocean. We actually took pictures of them down there. And then you read the fake news, they say, well, their Navy is really great. You know what they have now? Little runabouts with a machine gun on the front. The ships don't even really deal with them. They're like a gnat, they get off. That's all they have. It's crazy. This country needs a fair press. And one thing I think that's done is expose how corrupt our media is. And I really do, while we're here, I hope the media looks at this election that's taking place in California, where they think it'll take 7 or 8 days to count the votes. Can you believe this? Sure. I mean, they spend all that money on the machines, the big voting machines. They think it's going to be 7 or 8 days before we know who won the election. But the numbers are looking strange because without any vote counting, the numbers dropped very precipitously for two Republicans that are doing well, that had been doing well. And I hope you're all watching it because I'm watching it very closely.
Mr. President, are you worried that China is funding an anti-data center movement here?
No, I'm not worried about it. We had a great meeting with China. And, they do things to us and we do things to them. I say it all the time. They say, oh, are you worried about China tapping your phones? I said, well, they're worried about the same thing. No, we're very highly sophisticated. We've become very highly sophisticated. We had 4 years. I rebuilt the military. We had a military that was not good, and we rebuilt it. And I didn't know I'd use it quite as much, but we used it. Ukraine has been given a tremendous amount of our, without our military and our equipment, Ukraine wouldn't be alive to fight today. Just in terms of the question. We gave them hundreds of billions of dollars worth of equipment. and the best equipment. And we make the best equipment anywhere in the world, but they wouldn't have lasted 1 or 2 days. They wouldn't have been able to do it. Remember the anti-tank missiles? Remember that, right? When the tanks got stuck in the mud, and then they went around and boom, 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 and those were given by yours truly. They said Obama gave sheets and Trump gave the anti-tank as one of the most devastating weapons. But you check that out. But we have the greatest military. We have the greatest military equipment anybody's ever seen before. Look at Venezuela. We went in there. It was over after about 48 minutes. And, you know, they have a strong military, different kind of a military, but a lot of soldiers. And you look at Iran, where we essentially wiped out their military. Now, there's some missiles left, but very few compared to what they had.
And speaking of our military and Iran, I wanted to ask you about this report that you would only restart the conflict with Iran if they killed U.S. troops. Is that your red line for ending the ceasefire?
If they killed?
U.S. troops.
What does that mean?
That you would restart the war with Iran if they killed U.S. troops.
Well, it would be a good reason. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, if they killed U.S. troops, I think I would do that very quickly. Yeah, that's a very interesting question.
Ron, you responded to the vote in the House yesterday on the War Powers Resolution. Also, we've seen Hezbollah reject the U.S. brokered peace in Lebanon. You said that negotiations are in final stages, but Iran's saying they're stalled.
They didn't reject me. They didn't reject that. They're looking. I think Hezbollah, I will tell you, they called us and they said, how about stopping? And I think you're going to see things happen over there. That's been like a little bit of a different world, but it's interconnected with Iran. And it would be really nice if Lebanon could have some peace. Lebanon's been under attack for so many years and always like an underdog. And it would be really nice if it could end. And I spoke to Bibi Netanyahu about that, and I speak to them about it, and I actually spoke to Hezbollah about it. And I think progress is made. That's been going on for a long time. You know, when you look at that for years and years, 48 years, I say, well, let's get this settled. How long has it been going on? 48 years. I said, that's a long time. Not that easy, but go ahead.
As we get closer to the midterms, are you starting to factor in domestic reaction to this in your handling of this, or are
I
you
just do what's right.
indefinitely?
No, I mean, look, it was like Venezuela. It was very unpopular. Then we won, and my numbers went through the roof. I have very high poll numbers. They went through the roof. It was very unpopular when I went to Venezuela. They said, oh, we don't want... Well, first of all, that one's relatively close. It's sort of a semi-neighbor, right? And the relationship with Venezuela is incredible. We've taken out millions and millions of barrels of oil out of Venezuela. It's very oil prone. I guess, Chris, one of the most, right?
Yes.
And we've taken out, you're sort of leading it, but do you want to just tell them real fast about the relationship we have with Venezuela, Chris?
Yeah, things with Venezuela have gone very well. Venezuelan oil exports today are 3 times higher than they were right before we went in. So it has been a meaningful incremental supply of oil to the world. And one of the reasons we're solving a 47-year-old problem of Iran's race for nuclear weapons and oil prices in the U.S., we wish they were lower. But gasoline prices in the U.S. are, you know, a little over $4. They're $10 in Europe. They're higher in Asia. They're very high in California. The bigger threat to energy prices in the United States is Democratic green energy policies. They have driven up energy prices far more than a conflict in Iran. And the conflict in Iran will come to an end. We hope that crazy green energy, drive up energy prices policy of the Democrats at federal and state levels, we hope that comes to an end too.
And remember this, if you want to call it a war or if you want to call it a military operation, you cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and everybody agrees to that, no matter, almost everybody. But wait a minute, our gasoline prices are lower than they were with Biden without that. And he would have let them have, in fact, he inspired them to have, frankly, a nuclear weapon, him and Obama. Obama picked the wrong country, you know that. And the Obama deal, I terminated that, or they would have had a nuclear weapon. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. Our deal, if we make that deal, and it's going well, but who knows? If we make that deal, it's the exact opposite. They will never have a nuclear weapon.
It sounds like you're in it for as long as it takes.
I'm not going to let them have a nuclear weapon, no. With Obama, it was a road, you know that, it was a road to a nuclear weapon. That was a short-term agreement, and at the end of which they would have a nuclear weapon. So they would have had it 4 years ago. Then we attacked with this beautiful plane right here, the B-2 bomber. We attacked 10 months ago, we attacked their nuclear sites and they were obliterated. It turned out that, CNN was wrong. They said, well, maybe they weren't hit that hard. They were hit so hard, nobody knows if you can even get it out. But the only ones that have the capability of getting out is us in China. We're the only ones with that kind of equipment that's powerful enough to go down that deep into a mountain. But that mountain crushed it. That mountain literally collapsed on top of it. Those pilots did one hell of a job. And now the atomic energy, as you know, has backed us up on that. They think it's a very, very hard thing to get it. But we'll get it anyway. But we're the only one, and China, I believe China too, but we're the only two that have the capability.
President Biden is out promoting a new book this week. When you met with Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, right here in the Oval Office on November the 13th of 2024, could you detect any cognitive decline in President Biden at that time?
No, not really. I mean, he was the same guy I've been watching for a long time. I mean, you could go back 40 years. I watched him 40 years ago, 30 years ago. He was never the sharpest guy. You do know that, right? It wasn't like he was sharp as a tack. But, no, it was the same guy. They actually invited me here before the election, which was strange. We went here before, but then I met also, as you know, we did the ritual. And, I mean, he was fine as far as I was concerned. I don't know, something happened to him during the debate. It could have been me. I thought I had a very good debate. Nobody ever says that. They say that Biden did badly. What about me? Did I do well? There's a reason he did badly. So the question is, did he do badly because he choked or because he didn't have it? But he didn't have a good, I would say this, he did not have a good night.
But during that time period, you met with him for about 2 hours. You didn't feel he was
No, he spoke softly, very softly, and as we started to speak, I mentioned this to people. We spoke very, very softly, very low, and as we talked, we got along really well, and I thought he was fine. When I say fine, I mean, was he like talking to Doug Burgum? Was he like talking to Chris? Was he like talking to any of these monsters up here, all these tremendous politicians and environmental geniuses? Was he like talking to Andy Barr? No. He was fine.
I have a question about Hunter Biden. He's on social media now, and he has suggested, maybe joking, I don't know, that he could run for president in 2028. How would he do, Hunter Biden, in a 2028 Democratic primary?
Well, you would think that, past has something to do with winning an election, and I would say his past is not the greatest. Where's Hunter? Remember my Where's Hunter? It became the #1 shirt anywhere in the world for about 3 weeks. I'm not going to say bad. I'm sure, hey, if the guy from Maine can do well, I guess Hunter could do well too, because the guy from Maine is a basket case. And I would say worse than him is the one from Texas that looks like Alfred E. Newman. I would say that if he can do well, maybe Hunter can do well. I'm not sure. It'll be pretty close as far as I'm concerned.
And I've got a question about the nuclear dust. So the bombers go in, they entomb a lot of this enriched uranium.
Yeah.
At this point, do you need a deal with Iran to go get it? Or have you thought about just a covert, daring, send in the SEALs, send in the Rangers?
But I didn't want to be Jimmy Carter, I didn't feel like being Jimmy Carter.
So that's off the
we
table.
did. Well, we thought about it right at the very beginning, before we did what we did, before we destroyed their entire military. We thought about it, and I didn't want to be in a position where you had, to get there. It's not like Venezuela. Like you go in, you're there for a matter of minutes, and you're out, and everybody's waving goodbye as you take off, and you brought the cargo back. This is different. You'd have to be there for 2 weeks. You'd need massive equipment. You'd have to airlift the equipment in. You're in a war zone. And there was a time at the very beginning when we thought about doing that, because they would have not been watching, but they would have found out. I mean, during a period of a week to 2 weeks, you would have had a major construction operation, because that plane, and more importantly, those people that operate those planes, including the mechanics, that flew for 37 hours round trip. Think of that. And the tankers that refilled them 4 times, and what an operation it was. Amazing. And but we would have been, Peter, we would have been there for a period from a week to 2 weeks. We would have gotten it. But I said, I don't like the idea of that. All of a sudden, they, pinpoint. They still had missiles left. That means they would pinpoint you and just keep lobbing them in until one gets through, and people would have gotten killed. So I didn't like it. We could get it right now. I don't think they could stop us if we wanted, but there's no reason to. It's entombed. You use a good word. It's entombed. We also have cameras on it through Space Force. We have very powerful cameras. Every door, there's a door. You know where the doors go? They go to bad places. But every single place on those mountains is basically three. Because we also hit it with Tomahawks after. After that, we hit it with Tomahawk. Every inch of that land has cameras on it. We have about 9 of them, and they're on it. We cover it. So if anybody even got near it, we would know what we had to do.
And we've heard you want to meet with the new Ayatollah, the new supreme leader.
I don't want to meet, but if I did meet, I'd be honored to meet him. I'd like to see if we make a deal. But if we make a deal, it's possible that I would meet him. I'd be okay with that.
Would that happen here in the U.S., White House?
Oh, I don't know, Peter. I haven't really heard too much about it. I didn't suggest it, but some people have suggested it. If it happened, it would happen. I'd be respectful.
Do you think because Epic Fury killed his dad and his wife and his kid that he's got hard feelings and wouldn't want to meet?
Well, I would say I'm not his favorite person, but with that being said, he's probably I don't know. He's probably a professional. In some circles, he has a very good reputation, actually. Sometimes some people say bad, but a lot of people say bad about me. It's totally false, of course.
Mr. President, on jobs, tomorrow the jobs report will be released. While the unemployment rate has been steady at 4.3%, the black unemployment rate has been 7.3%. When you ran for president, you courted black voters and talked about what you described as black jobs. How do you describe why this disparity is happening? What can you do to close that?
Well, we're doing very well with the black jobs, African-American jobs. I saw some numbers that we're doing really well. But where we're really going to do well is when all these plants are open. We're building many car plants. We're bringing cars back from Germany. We're bringing, we lost the car industry years ago. 54% of the industry went to Germany, Japan, Canada, Mexico. It's all coming back. It's amazing. And where your black worker is really going to do well is when those factories open. So I think they're going to be great. We've been doing very well. It's been a big focus for me. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. On today's announcement, how do you ensure that estimated cost savings are passed on to the consumers and not held by the company? And then on Iran, what specific progress has been made today in talks with them, and where are the sticking points still?
So we're really lowering costs. When I came into this job, we had the highest inflation in the history of our country, 48 years, they say, but I think the history of our country, whether it's 48 years or more. But we had tremendous inflation with Biden, during the Biden. They had one of the highest ever. And I inherited that. The costs were very, very high. And at my first news conference, Peter and others were screaming at me about eggs. Remember, Peter? Eggs. What about eggs? Maybe it wasn't you, but I wanted to inject Peter into it. But he was screaming to me about eggs. And I said, what? Tell me about eggs. This is 2 days in. They said eggs had quadrupled. I said, well, they didn't quadruple under me. And they didn't want me to order eggs for the Easter egg hunt that was going to take place in a few months, right? And I said, nope, we're not going to. They wanted me to order plastic eggs. And I said, nope. And we got eggs down to lower than what it was long prior to when I took over. And eggs today are about 15% lower. What we had is a bunch of con artists, the Democrats. And what they did is they left. They gave the highest prices that we've ever had for all products, groceries, everything. And they started saying affordability. that say this is about affordability. It's a con job. I inherited their high prices. We brought those prices way down. And when and if you go back 3 months ago, if you go back before the war started, think of it, 3 months. So with Vietnam, we were there for 19 years. With Iraq, it was about 9 years. With another one, it was about 12 years. And with another one, we had all these wars that lasted for 9, 10, 12, 19 years for Vietnam. Think of it. And they said, you're in there for 3 months. This is a terrible thing. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers have been killed in these other wars. We lost not one soldier in Venezuela. We didn't lose one soldier. And we lost a total of 13, which is 13 too many. But when you look at hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed in these various wars, they lasted many, many years. We're in there for a few months, and what we've done is amazing. They won't have a nuclear weapon. And we did, it was tough because we just got, Doug and everybody came in to see me, we just got the best numbers. Well, today, again, the New York Stock Exchange and every other exchange just hit a new all-time high. That's 73 days out of my short term. We've hit brand new highs. Every 401k is setting records. A 401k, a lot of people have. You probably all have 401ks. Look at your 401k. You're happy about your 401k? You know, the nice reporters are smiling at me, and the stupid reporters are like that. But their 401ks are setting records. They should be happy. They shouldn't be angry. They should be very happy. But 401ks are setting records. They've never had anything like it. So, you know, we've done a good job. As far as Iran's concerned, you're going to find out what the deal is. But the main parts of the deal is they can't have a nuclear weapon. The Strait will open immediately. You know, it's going to open immediately. And we've largely swept for mines. We have the most sophisticated mines. They're underwater minesweepers. I actually said to somebody, one of the generals, why underwater? He said, because usually it's hostile. You know, when you're looking for mines, typically it's not in a good neighborhood, right? So underwater made a lot of sense. When it didn't take long to figure that one out. So I think we're doing very well, but we're going to see if we're going to win one way or the other. We're going to win on paper, or we're going to win military. One way or the other. It's going to be militarily or on paper.
Mr. President, how critical is energy dominance, whether it be coal, whether it be LNG, whether it be oil, to national security?
Without it, you can't win. As an example, AI is a big deal. Whether we like it, not like it, it's going to be amazing in many ways. It's going to be, I think, for medical, it will be amazing. But without massive amounts of energy, you can't even play the game. And we're leading China by a lot in AI. I was talking to President Xi about it. But if we didn't do, Lee Zeldin's done so great because, number one, fast approvals from professionals. You know, you'd have the best firms in the world submitting papers to them. And we didn't keep them waiting for 10 years and then vote against them after 10 years. That way, guys would file with the environmental for a plant of some kind. After 15 years, they would be rejected. It was terrible. Now we have great professionals there, and we only accept plans from great professionals, but we give them fast turnaround, and it's been really amazing. I think the biggest thing we've done, Lee, is we let these geniuses with all this money build their own electric plant. We don't take it from our grid. We let them build their own plant. They become a utility. So they're building a plant, and at the same time, they're building electricity. Because if we didn't do that, you couldn't have anything. You couldn't have, and we're letting that happen, too, with car plants and other plants, if they want to build their own electric. But with the AI, you know, you hear so much about it, but one of the biggest things, they build their own. And then excess energy that they create will go back into the grid. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, on Cuba, Mr. President.
Just let him have one.
Mr. President, Secretary Rubio was in Delhi last week. He delivered a letter from you to Prime Minister Modi. And sir, you also addressed people of India to your favorite ambassador, Sergio Gore.
That's right.
Yeah. Both of them have said the trade deal is around the corner. Where do you stand on the trade deal?
Well, we have it. And, you know, look, India for years has, and I don't blame them, I blame us because we had stupid people here. India for years really took advantage of the United States. You know that. Are you from India by any chance? Huh? I thought you were from Germany.
I'm from India.
I'm only kidding. You're central casting, okay? And that's a very good thing. India for years took advantage of this country. They charged us tremendous tariffs, and they paid nothing. They wouldn't let Harley, as an example, in the past, they wouldn't let Harley Davidson sell its motor. They would charge 200% tariff. So Harley Davidson was precluded. They ended up going to India and building their own plants, which is unfortunate that that happened, but that happens. That was before me. But they charged tremendous amounts of tariffs to our company, and we didn't charge them anything. You know, they sold motorbikes here too. You know what we charged them? Nothing. And now it's the exact reverse. And we're making a lot of money with India. But we'll get to a deal, because I like your Prime Minister a lot. He's a good friend of mine. Get along great, and we're going to make a deal. We have a very good relationship.
Mr. President, speaking of deals, Mr. President, on Cuba, are your sanctions on Cuba meant to accelerate its collapse?
No, we just want them to be a nicely run country that can feed its people. Look, it's a failed nation. Without Venezuela, Venezuela, because it has such wealth in the ground, mostly in the ground. But Venezuela took care of them for years, and they took care of Venezuela. They were like the bodyguards. When we went in and burst into their country, the Venezuelans were guarding Maduro and everybody else. It was mostly, the soldiers were, in that case, we had a lot of Cubans were guarding. The Cubans were the guards, and they're good soldiers. But the country is starving, and it's got no energy, it's got no oil, it's got no money, it's got nothing. It's got a beautiful piece of land. You could have beautiful resorts, doesn't have oil, but Venezuela was giving them the money to survive, and now, the money is, I guess you could say, is coming to us and is going to Venezuela. Venezuela's been an amazing thing because we've paid for the cost of the attack many, many times over. And it's been a long time since you've heard.
Do you think that Cuba is close to collapsing, though, based on everything you just laid out? Do you think that Cuba is close to collapsing?
It sort of collapsed, and we're going to handle that as soon as we've finished. I like to do one thing at a time, and we'll take care of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as soon as that's done on our way back, we'll just make a little brief stop.
Mr. President.
We'll take care of it. We want to help them out. Look, we have a lot of people that voted for Trump. Whether they did or not, it didn't matter. But I had 95% of the Cubans voted for me. They're unbelievable people. They're energetic. They're entrepreneurial. Some of the richest people in Miami are Cuban. They're unbelievable. And I'm going to take good care of them. I'm going to let them go back to their land. They want to be back with family. They have a lot of family over there. They've been treated very badly by Cuba. But we're going to treat Cuba well, and we're going to let our people go back and let them invest in Cuba if they'd like. So we have some very good plans for Cuba. I think, we have to get rid of the regime was very tough, very nasty. The difference is now they don't have money coming in. They had a lot of money coming in from Venezuela. They don't have any money coming. They had oil coming in. They had money coming in. But we're going to take care of Cuba.
Mr. President, sir.
And you know what? They want us to. The people want us there so badly.
Mr. President, sir.
Last night, huge night for the city of New York. The Knicks won Game 1 of the NBA Finals. There's been a lot of speculation. Have you decided whether or not you want to attend a game at Madison Square
Well,
Garden?
I've been a Knicks fan for a long time, and I'm also a Jim Dolan fan. He's a nice guy, okay? He's been a long time wanting to win, and he's a competitive guy, and he's got a team that's amazing. I don't think they've lost a playoff game.
12 straight wins.
Can you imagine that? And it was not looking good. I saw the beginning of the game, and it wasn't looking good. I missed the middle because I talked to generals all night long now. But I watched that end of the game, and they were dominant. Really amazing. And Wemby's a great player. He's going to be a great player, and he is already a great player. I say, how do you guard this guy? 7'5", and he's got a great shot, right? But they find a way to do it. They're really great. They're a great team. And I'm happy for Jim, because Jim has really been fighting hard to, produce such a team. So you never know. The answer is yes. He's invited me. I'm going.
Which game have you decided, sir?
Say it?
Game 3, Game 4. Are you excited?
It could be Monday, yeah. Monday.
Mr. President, speaking in New York.
Maybe I'll do both.
You mentioned your meeting with the automakers yesterday. Can you tell us a little bit about that, more about that in particular? Did you discuss trade, tariffs, USMCA?
We had a great meeting with the auto. I mean, most of them were here. They were really talking about the fix your own car kind of a thing, right? But They're doing very well since I'm in office because I got rid of a lot of environmental restrictions. And in fact, you might just tell them a little bit about that, Lee. Where we made it so much easier for them to build a car. They can build a less expensive car that's much better. And they were so choked up with environmental nonsense that in order to save 4 ounces of gasoline, you had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Lee, do you want to go into that, please?
President Trump, we sent to Congress 3 Biden EPA waivers to California that Congress passed. President Trump signed last year, getting rid of the electric vehicle mandate that a whole bunch of other states had signed on to. Just a couple of months ago, President Trump announced here at the White House the largest act of deregulation in the history of the United States, the repeal of the 2009 endangerment finding. All the greenhouse gas emission standards in light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles were following the law, and what that means for cost of living, just on that act alone, $2,400 more affordable per vehicle for Americans. The victories come out every single day. President Trump gave us very clear guidance. He wanted us to act at Trump speed to get this done as fast as possible. And what you see now all across America is billions upon billions of investments all across this country with new factories being built. They believe in America. They're investing in America with the American jobs to come up with it. And by the way, consumer choice. We got rid of that climate participation trophy for that annoying start-stop feature in cars to make your car die at every stop sign and red light. So yeah, the gifts, the receipts, the wins, they keep coming, and we're just getting started.
Did they ask you for any tariff changes on auto?
No, they didn't do that. Look, they're making so much money now because, I did something else that, I don't know, does it because we have no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, right? So that's really been big. That's turned out to be much bigger than anyone knew. If you look at the people, they're saving from $5,000 to $7,000, $8,000 even on average because of that. So it's been good. But I did something else that nobody talks about. If you buy a car and you borrow money, you're allowed to deduct the interest for income tax purposes. Never happened before. And deductions were always meant for rich people. They weren't meant for middle-class people or other people wanting to buy a car. So now you're allowed to get a deduction of your interest payment. That's a tremendous thing. I mean, but what's the key? Only if the car is made in America. Thank you very much, everybody.
Let's see if he takes another one. Okay, sometimes they do shoo them out. That was a pretty broad sweeping and amazing news conference in that I think the media, they were more reserved. Their questions, while some were a little bit offbeat, were more respectful. They all had plenty of stuff to ask about. There's so much stuff going on in the world, really, in the economy. There were other dumb questions. Ducey asking him about the $250 bill was just silly, but, it's part of it. But I'm telling you, the president was clear of mind, had a lot of answers for everybody. And I just, in this moment, and I know we got a show to do, it was I got fascinated with it, and so we stayed with it. Just appreciate, we have taken for granted that the president of the United States on a regular basis will just open up the White House into the Oval Office, not some news conference where he's walled off from the media. They get 2 questions and everything's scripted and he leaves, and the rest of the time it's just spinners and spokespeople. It's just a dude taking questions from a very hostile media, which is in some ways their job is to press the president, and the back and forth, the give and take, the various elements that are happening. I get this sense, and AJ, we'll go to the break. We'll try to combine some things real quick and get a little bit back on time. But I get a sense that Trump's just kind of running out of time in that, hear me out, we're not going to see this very much longer. When he's done in 2.5 years, we don't know if the Republicans will put up a nominee that can get elected, if we fix the elections, if a Republican get elected and hold some of these successes. Because all of these things that were announced today's the purpose for the announcement, the reason for the gathering before the news conference was a multi-billion-dollar investment back into the coal industry. They're going to use the War Powers Act to reinvigorate the coal industry, which has a direct effect here in Alabama and around the Southeast on 2 fronts. 1, those coal jobs, but 2, this war that we're in to produce more energy, and it's all being driven by AI. The foolish attempts at shutting down coal, particularly from the started in earnest with the Obama administration, has left us kind of flat-footed and some people without jobs. If you think about, remember Joe Biden said, "Oh, they should just learn how to code." Now those jobs are being taken by AI. So the point being, by the time these plants come online, these incentives start to happen, some of these things, these huge announcements get out of the ground. Trump's going to be almost done. He will walk out the door in 2.5 years with the ballroom built. The border will remain closed. All these plants will be up and hiring. We don't know what other world calamity could happen. There could be other war and other things. But he won't get to enjoy the fruit of all this push, Trump speed pushing, constant frenetic activity every single day in every single direction all the time. The dude's just a machine, and it drives the left crazy. I mean, who's got time in the middle of trying to negotiate a hostage situation with Iran to make sure the fountains are clean in D.C. and during a time of our nation's birth celebration so that our nation's capital is not an embarrassment to the rest of the world? When we welcome dignitaries and world travelers back to our nation's capital, they'll see a cleaner city with less crime and a nice ballroom to go to the big dinners, which is how the rest of the world projects power and gets things done. We were behind. We had just let things kind of fall apart in this country, and all we had to do was care. And the man cares. And so that was crazy to see him go from that subject to the economic development stuff to the energy stuff with the AI wars and all this stuff that we're all debating these days. We're not going to see this in the next presidency. I don't care, even if a Republican replaces him, if it's Rubio or if it's one of the others, if it's JD, these guys will do it the old way. They'll go back to the George Bush style of governing. I'm not saying their policies will be bad. Their style will be different. We will never have this kind of transparency directly into the mind of whatever a president wants to do, like it or not. We won't see this again probably in my lifetime. So that's why I wanted to stay with it. These things are producing fruit, and you could see it today in all the economic indicators. We got more on that when we come back. Later, I got to talk about screw worms, and that has nothing to do with politicians. But it is a huge threat to the beef industry, and it's starting to raise alarm bells in Texas. We got other things to get to, too. Birmingham Broker bringing you the show tonight. That's Craig and Keith and the team down there at bhambroker.com. bhambroker.com. Y'all let them take care of you, and they will if you've got a car, truck, or SUV for sale. They'll just get it out there and get it sold. Sometimes we need a little help with those things. I don't like doing it. I don't like prepping the car. I don't want to fool with it. Most of us don't, which is why we'll just go dump it on a dealer and they'll give us, 70% of the value. Then you lose your tail. Do it the smart way. Let them sell it. You'll be happy with the transaction. You'll make more money. You won't have any stress. Life is good. Go find you a new car if it's time to trade or buy something at one of these other dealerships. Let them help. And check out BB Moto Electric while you're there. That's the electric off-road dirt bike company. These aren't e-bikes. These are actual off-road motorcycles that are all electric in nature. It's a cool thing. As we start planning and heading toward big ticket Christmas items and whatnot, you might want to go check these out. It's a cool shop. It's a new business that they've added down at Birmingham Broker. bhambroker.com, bhambroker.com. Back here in just a minute. That was some kind of epically long break, but y'all thank y'all for bearing with us. Gave me time to go make some coffee, AJ, as we get ramped up for the second half of the show. We just had to sort of squeeze the show around and move it around sometimes. We catch more of that in the evenings than our predecessors and colleagues have. The morning show just doesn't have a lot of these live news conferences, and not many of them happen during Andrew's show, but we tend to – it's always a judgment call as to whether to go to anything Trump's doing. It could be mindless ramble. It really could. I mean, he's not always on point. There'll be a zinger in there or a massive headline out of nowhere because he's so unscripted. But today was, I don't know what it was. It was refreshing to me because it was informative. The answers were clear. The questions were reasonable for most of that news conference. And what they had to say, Trump and his team, I'm just going to go on about this for a few more minutes, gives me a lot of hope that once we get the hair off this dog over in Iran, and y'all, that's just a hostage situation. There hasn't really been a war there in almost 2 months. We knocked them out, accomplished all those goals. They took a hostage, and we're just trying to negotiate them out of the hostage situation. Maybe it's going to all end up good. And in the end, the world's not threatened by these maniacs. Our economy is roaring. I mean, it's just on a launch pad and starting to have liftoff after just a year and a half. And sometimes I wish Trump's maturity level in terms of his distrust of the system, so much that he had to learn from that first term because they bulldozed him with fake scandals and setups and phony charges and convictions and arrests and all the other attacks on him personally, plus slowing down his agenda, manufacturing riots. We've got more information today, and I didn't mean to get into it now. We'll do it in detail later, where the feds have now entered a superseding indictment on the Southern Poverty Law Center, which means they take the old indictment and they sort of add on the new charges with new information they've gleaned. Y'all, they had a whole fund set up. They've got all the details. They were paying, listen to this, they were paying Klans people to not quit the Klan. These guys are like, I don't know, man, it ain't fun no more. You know, we don't burn crosses or anything. We just kind of hang out and drink beer and bitch. And they're like, no, we'll pay for the uniforms. If y'all will wear those things and burn a cross, we'll provide the supplies. They had a budget to reimburse these Klans people for supplies so they'd have the money to go buy whatever you got to buy to burn a cross. What do you got to have? Some telephone poles and some kerosene. The SPLC was funding that. They were paying some of them $1,200 a month to stay in the Klan. Billy Tom, Bobby Tom was like, "Not to hell with this, man. I got bills to pay. I ain't got time to be out there hating people right now." They're like, "No, buddy, here's $1,200 a month. Hang in there. We can do this." And the part that shows they knew what they were up to, that blows their cover story apart, they claim, well, we had infiltrators and we were gleaning information. No, they weren't. They were keeping high-profile events in the news so that they could attack the president and you and me and everybody, the right-thinking people that are just, they want a decent country to live in. Suddenly you have to be vilified by this organization doing militant work on behalf of the Democrats with donor money. So they created these fake entities and used fake books for the fake entities to hide the contributions so people wouldn't know that they were back channeling money to create the situation. The SPLC basically set up the damn Charlotte rally. You know how we never quit hearing, Charlottesville. We never quit hearing about Charlottesville. I never understood what the outrage was. You remember the left was tearing down cultural iconic symbols all over the South in some purge, tearing down Robert E. Lee statues or whatever. One group supports it. The other group doesn't support it. They get together at a protest, and it was a melee. But the fact that it was organized and sponsored and paid for to create the image of the clash so that they could turn around and get their buddies in the news media to give it volume like it was some international or national historic incident was completely phony. They just had to invent hate because they can't find any. This country's busy, man. We're all trying to work and get along. They don't know what to do if people would get along. They hate stuff like that. I heard a news anchor today asking a question about the UFC fight. I couldn't believe the soundbite. If I find it, I'll play it for you later. She was asking about the UFC fight. She goes, haven't other dictators throughout history used sports to project power? I mean, was she saying Hitler in the Olympics? I don't know. It's a UFC fight. Humans have been watching each other fight. Another guy, I think it was Al Sharpton. That son of a bitch is still alive. Al Sharpton was saying, slave masters used to get their slaves to fight and for entertainment. And that may be a historical fact, and it probably happened on rare occurrences. But humans have been fighting each other for sport since Cain and Abel. And y'all know y'all watch boxing and fighting. These people need imagery. They need old, dead iconography. And Trump's had to swim in that environment. And guess what? We're still wildly successful right now despite all that. The border's closed. We got a net negative migration. Crime is at a 25-year low. The economy's on a rocket ship. Every single major market is setting records. The only nag right now is some inflationary stuff that we're still surviving from the Biden days and this fuel situation that we know why it's there. And it'll be over the day the situation is resolved, which could be hours away or months away. I don't know. But totally worth the effort. These are amazing times. Transition has already happened. I never think they'd get away with it. This is also with a bunch of cheese-eating, surrender monkey, French flag-waving Republicans that don't have the man's back. He doesn't even have a solid majority of his own party right now. He's got a bunch of candidates that put on little red hats and say MAGA, MAGA, MAGA in their campaign ads, but they don't really have any fight in them, and they can't get the basic, decent things like the SAVE Act passed. The dude is still being successful. And wait till he's gone, man, especially if one of these commies wind up winning the White House, which is possible. 2.5 years from now, they could put any nut job in there. They could find somebody to run. And then this country goes right back to hell. Straight back to hell. I mean, straight to hell. Things like the thing in New York today where they now want to call mothers gestating what do they call them? Gestating parents. Father is non-gestating parent. So AJ, so I can get ahead of it in a couple weeks, happy non-gestating parent day. Stupid sons of. Back in a minute.